Welcome to This Just In, the show bringing you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. And now, for the fastest voice in healthcare, here's your host, Justin Barnes.
Thank you for tuning in, and welcome to This Just In. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. In these segments, I'll bring you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. As always, we're broadcasting from the This Just In studios on the Business Radio X network, as well as the Healthcare Now radio network. For this episode, my 212th episode, we have a very special guest returning to the show, Alex Lennox-Miller, Senior Analyst from Chilmark Research. Welcome back, my good friend. How are you?
I'm doing just fine, Justin. Thanks. Really happy to be back. Really happy to be joining you in the new year.
Yeah, you guys, as we're talking a little bit off air, you guys just have great research, some of the latest announcements that you put out there and predictions. We're going to dive into that here in a moment. But I was just reflecting as I was prepping for the show that in the 6 years that I've been broadcasting this show, you are now tied with Dr. John Holomka as my most frequent guest. That's pretty cool.
Wow. All right. I'll take that.
Yeah. I think that's a great testament to you personally, but also to what Chilmark Research brings to healthcare and digital health. So congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah. And actually, John, I know John will be on next month. And I certainly want to have you guys back. I actually really been diving into your research here lately. And ironically, I actually just got an email right before we went on air that you even have this new analyst interview that you just distributed today. And I saw that email come out. So a lot of you guys just creating amazing content. So you want to say a couple of words about that before we dive in?
Sure, absolutely. You know, one of the things that we've been trying to do in the new year is try to make stuff a little bit more accessible, try to make stuff a little bit easier for people to take in. Mm-hmm. You know, the really long form deep dive reports that we've done historically, 70 to 100 pages are fantastic. And we really consider those to be the sort of centerpieces of any year. But there's so much happening and stuff is happening so frequently. So the video channel with the analyst interviews and some discussion, that's a little bit quicker, a little bit easier for people to sort of tune into and get the quick hits is something that we're really excited about. It's been getting really great feedback, and we're looking forward to continuing that through the year.
Yeah, I see this. Yeah, this really cool YouTube channel that you guys are launching and promoting. So I certainly want to help there because as we've talked about now numerous times on air, I've been reading Chilmark's research for well over a decade now, or even longer. So I know what you guys bring to the market. That's why I love to have you on air. Everything we talk about, I feel, is really spot on. Certainly the research that you guys create and share is either what's happening today or what's going to happen tomorrow. So I'm grateful for your time. And so let's go ahead and dive in specifically. And the first part is, we've seen the surge in telehealth, and there's a lot out there around virtual care. But one of the predictions you put out there is that you don't expect the surge to happen for RPM and coming up. So what are your thoughts there?
Telehealth was mandatory, basically, in 2020. Providers really didn't have a choice. I think what we're going to see isn't so much that RPM will never happen, but that we're going to see some reconsolidation, some retrenching on behalf of providers. They're really going to have to come to grips with the new reality. They're going to have to come to grips with what they really need and what's really going to bring value to them. And that's why we put this prediction in. It's more specifically for 2021 than it is for the long term. Probably in the next 5 years, virtual care and RPM are going to be really major parts of any healthcare system and any healthcare provision. I don't see it happening in 2021. I think we're going to see a lot of development of the rule systems. I think we're going to see a lot of maturing of the technology and the platforms, but the real deployment of the technology is going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah, I completely agree. Even from what I'm seeing, because I'm out there and knee deep in virtual care and telehealth and RPM and virtual care management, all this good stuff. And I've certainly seen exactly what you said. There's still enthusiasm, and people know it's part of the future, and they know they're going to do it. but it's not front and center. It's still managing, their care delivery. It's how are we going to, obviously continue to integrate telehealth into our care models. And then, but what I'm really seeing a piece of, and I'd love your opinion on this, is almost how people are redesigning their digital front door and how patients engage with their practice. That's far beyond just what telehealth is. That's really rethinking, the patient workflow and how we engage the patient and how we manage this patient. We're going to managing it, more remotely now, more technically, more digitally. And there's a lot of components there. So what are you seeing from that perspective?
No, I think you're absolutely right. The term we're using is what we're calling distributed care, that we're going to see a growth in the use of virtual care tools to support and supplement the entire provider process. It's going to be almost a form of rethinking how care is delivered, that there are people who desperately need in-person care, and there are some treatments and some procedures that have to be done in person, but there are a lot of people who don't. And for people who can, get benefit and really see really good outcomes from virtual solutions, they're the people who are going to get pushed into or brought into those care models, and that's going to free up provider time and availability for the people who really need that in-person treatment. What I really expect to see is an acceleration of payer-driven and employer-driven care. You're going to see lots more people who are accessing some kind of healthcare or healthcare support, something like a Livongo, for example, from their employer. That's something that has been growing slowly over the past 5 years, started to really, along with telehealth, see a lot more adoption in 2020. And those are the things that are going to be probably accelerating the most in 2021. The other one, and this is the one that I see as most important, is in behavioral health.
Yeah.
Behavioral health is a huge obstacle in most of healthcare. It causes worse chronic care outcomes. It causes untreated. It causes worse long-term outcomes. And it's really hard for people to access. The growth of behavioral health-focused virtual care, not just teletherapy, but CBT and DBT apps, mindfulness apps, journaling, things that people can do from their home as they need it, supported by coaches, by nurses, by professionals, LCSWs, LSWs. That is probably the sector I see as growing the most in 2021, and it's terribly needed. The statistics on people's behavioral health and mental health over the course of the pandemic are really sad, and it's only gotten harder. Behavioral health is drastically underfunded. It's really hard for people to get. Being able to give patients access to really good behavioral health care is going to be not just a driver of healthcare IT business, it's going to be a major driver of improved healthcare outcomes.
Excellent point. And I could not agree more. And I'm seeing that certainly in my world as well. And the other thing you guys talk about as you open up this predictions article post that you have, you talk about the hangover from COVID, and I couldn't agree more. And I think it's very important that we keep that not just the topic of the pandemic front and center, but more about the effects and understanding how it's going to affect you. So think strategically about you personally as an organization, and think about your business and what you're doing, and just think about, what does this pandemic mean to you in your business or your patient base or your organization, whatever it is. But think about it. It's this hangover is not going to go away in March or June or July. It could be 18 to 24 months. We're going to see these still significant effects. What are your thoughts there?
It's one of the things that if people take one takeaway from anything else we say this year, I hope it's this, that the effects of COVID are not going away, and that COVID has a lot to teach us about our ability to prepare as a national health system, as organizations, as individual businesses, and just as people. Because these kinds of events, whether or not you know exactly what they're going to be, something like this was going to happen. People have been saying that for 10, 15 years, and we weren't ready for it. the ability to support your employees, support your patients, support your business model, those understandings really need to evolve, and there are really important lessons that we need to take away from this. Excellent. One of the strangest, and I think one of the most unexpected, was that fee-for-service medicine, while it is, in theory, less risky, right? We call VBC taking on risk.
Right.
But organizations that were incapitated or heavily VBC contracts did so much better over the course of the pandemic than organizations that were reliant on fee-for-service and elective procedures.
That's a great point.
There's less risk in that. Yep. It turns out there's less overall money, but we need to really be looking at not just how we provide healthcare, but how we pay for it and what it means to be putting, the ability to maintain an ER on the back of elective surgeries.
Yeah, that last point I could not underscore more, and I'm actually part of that. So I'm a massive hybrid where I've got it's not a concierge doctor system, but there's a company in Hip Nation in Georgia that I'm a member of, and they proactively, it's not capitated in any way, but I pay a very small fee monthly to have basically a private doctor. Well, they reached out to me the moment this pandemic hit and made sure that I was up to speed on everything that's happening. And they sent information to me so I could be ahead of this, how I could protect myself if I had any issues, how I reach out to them immediately. It was proactive instead of reactive. And so I felt very much at comfort during this process. Obviously, there's a lot going on out there, but I knew my doctor and looked out for me proactively. And then I maintained, a very strong relationship with him throughout and still even to this day, I talked to him yesterday. But I mean, bottom line, it's been such a healthy model, and I couldn't agree more with you and how this reactionary model is just not. That's a much riskier model. The way you put it was perfect. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. So moving along here, what are the virtual care areas that you see growth? Because we talked to, how we know RPM is the future. It's going to be a significant part of everybody's care delivery for the most part. But what do you see, as it relates to virtual care areas moving forward?
So behavioral health is the biggest, like I said. Yes. The other one is going to be, I think, in analytics. It's going to be less visible than telehealth and RPM are because it doesn't move into the patient awareness as much, but the ability to aggregate data, the ability through FHIR, through the new interoperability rules, the ability to really unify data is going to be staggering in its impact, and it is a fundamental component of virtual care. When you have a bunch of virtual care solutions, when you have your primary care provider, a pharmacy that you go to, maybe retail clinics, other sources, if you're getting care through your employer or through your insurer, all of those sources need to be aggregated together. You need some central data platform pulling those things together, aggregating that data, normalizing it, analyzing it. That's going to be the foundation for virtual care going forward, and that's going to be the biggest area. That's going to be probably the biggest occurrence, I think, this year, is that we're going to see organizations start to deploy those solutions, start to really deploy them at scale, and start to really derive value from that data. Yeah, the big question is, who's it going to be, right? The EHRs have been the central pillar of healthcare IT for decades. They may no longer occupy that position if other organizations come in and start providing that central data aggregation role.
I completely agree. And that's why those APIs and really trying to move this industry forward. And I know those, my last guests were the ONC, and they came on there and talked about how they pushed the rules out a couple of months just to, obviously help navigate the industry navigate COVID and what the pandemic's doing to us in healthcare. But we still got to stay the course on unleashing data, ensuring interoperability, API-based interoperability, so we get data flowing. Completely agree.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that you're going to we we've got it started last year. Organizations that have been making purchases now are starting to move into new spaces to combine, for example, telehealth and chronic care solutions, telehealth and behavioral health, to really form not just individual point solutions, but really a platform. That growth is going to continue. There are going to be more purchases, more acquisitions, because this is an arms race that nobody can really afford to not be participating in. If all you're doing is offering a telehealth platform now and you are trying to sell that to employers,
right,
they're going to look at you and they're going to say, why do I just want acute telehealth when I could have acute telehealth and diabetes monitoring and behavioral health and wellness?
Very true. I completely agree. So what changes are you guys predicting on the provider side? Because that's a lot of my listenership is heavily focused there. So what are you thinking there?
The biggest changes probably are going to be an acceleration of, first of all, vertical integration. Mm-hmm. That's the merging of providers and payers. We see that with the news coming out about Optum buying Atrius Health here in Massachusetts. That's going to continue. The interesting thing about it is what we predict and what we're seeing is that this is really ambulatory focused. This is really outpatient.
Yes.
ASCs, IPAs, those are the organizations that are going to see the biggest growth. Moving care out of the hospital, we see CMS and the federal government drastically changing the rules on payment and on inpatient required treatments. That's going to, expect it to take 3 to 5 years to fully implement. But even next year, there's going to be, a huge list of potentially outpatient ambulatory procedures that never used to be available. Site neutral pricing. It's just going to be a huge shift away from hospitals and inpatient care towards ambulatory care. I think it's for the best.
Yes.
We know that, hospitals are absolutely essential when you need them, but there are a lot of things that don't need to be inpatient, that patients can recover from better at home, can get, at least equal care. And the more patients that we can move away from locations of HACs and HAIs who can, be in a community setting, in a home setting, that's all for the good.
No, I completely agree. And obviously this, not to bring in money all the time, but there's significant financial savings, as everybody has seen.
That too.
Yeah. When you shift that direction. But obviously the increased care and all those, the research that says, we really need to embrace those home care models and all the value that comes with that. So.
Yeah. And those financial incentives can't be ignored because the price differentials are really significant. And that's another reason that we're predicting the movement that we see. You look at who's coming out of the pandemic, flush with cash, it's payers. And, they're not going to sit on it. They know that they can really see significant savings from investing this and moving patients in specific directions.
So moving right along, what are you seeing, what would you like to see this year, in 2021? And even what do you guys kind of predict, some of the additional strategies? We've covered, behavioral health. We've covered some of the topics, but what do you want to see out there from some of this evolution?
What I'd like to see the most is really fast progress in hospital at home. The CMS promotion of hospital at home and treatment at home is great. I hope it continues. But there's a question of how quickly can it move? How fast can we, get this stuff really off the ground and start, giving people these options? If there's one thing that I really want to see in 2021, it might be that. And the other thing might be just more spending in behavioral health. I can't tell you how, important this issue is to the overall cost of care, to healthcare outcomes in this country. It is a major topic, and it's grossly underaddressed. If we can see more investment in behavioral health, if we can see investment in providing care and services to people who don't need in-person appointments, so that people who do need those in-person appointments can get them and can get them quickly. The wait times for behavioral health appointments are astonishing. The non-attendance and non-adherence because of those wait times is really significant. Yeah. And there's no way to create more appointments unless you free up time.
I completely agree. Well said. I love, the hospital home model. I love it. My friend Rasu's one of the leaders from Atrium there, and really kind of create and foster some of those models. So and we've been talking about it for years in the think tank. And so I agree completely. I'd love to see much more of that. I think we are in some capacities, not necessarily policy driven, but strategically driven from our communities.
No, absolutely. Mass General here in Boston has been doing fantastic stuff. They're one of the pilot programs for the CMS hospital at home. I hope they do fantastic, but I really want to see it move. I want to see it, become the norm as opposed to stuck in a pilot process.
I agree. So what would you like to see the least?
Oh, boy.
Let's see the list. It's great.
All right. In talking to people, a lot of people are concerned that we're going to backslide in telehealth, that we're going to go back to where we were before the pandemic. I'm actually not concerned about that.
Yeah, I'm
not worried about that. Yeah, what worries me and what I don't want to see there is I don't want to see us settle on a new status quo where all we do is have integrated telehealth and say, yep, you can do appointments remotely now and not change anything else. Mm-hmm. The rollout of telehealth during the pandemic was phenomenal. It absolutely was. And people may not appreciate it if you haven't been in the industry and seen how hard it has been to get people to adopt these tools and really use them broadly. We can do it as an industry. We can do these things. We can do them quickly. We can do them safely. We can do them well. And my hope is that now people understand that. We don't have to settle for just what we've been forced to do by circumstances. There's so many opportunities to improve care, to improve the experience of care, not just for patients, but for providers also. If we can keep that momentum going, if we can keep moving forward as an industry, that would make me so happy. Yeah. What I don't want to see is the industry resting on its laurels and saying, we did telehealth, congratulations. It's going to take us another 10 years to do RPM. Right. There was this sense for years that there were these progressive systems that were really well funded that, were the ones who could do this stuff and roll it out and innovate. And what we've proven in the past 12 months is that that's not true.
Yep.
That any system can do it. Any office can do it. Any department can do it. And that's what we need to maintain. We need to keep in mind how incredible what we've accomplished is, and that compared to that, the things that we need to accomplish coming up are so much easier.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And we've seen so much progress. And I also want to agree with the other point, and because I'm saying this and living and breathing this today, is people are looking for those larger platforms. They are, at least the people who are going to be successful and who are making demonstrable strides in modernizing healthcare and evolving our healthcare system, they are looking for those larger platforms. They're not buying standalone. So I completely agree there. But we want to keep our momentum. We want to make sure people are integrating telehealth the way it needs to be integrated, and that they're kind of evolving. And you said distributed care model, but they're evolving their care delivery and their care strategies. Mm-hmm. What I say, and I completely agree. And so we want to keep that keep that momentum and all that progress, because it wasn't overnight technically, because we've been working on this for probably well over a decade, but it seemed very quick for healthcare. but you know, we are there, and we certainly don't want to backslide. I agree.
Yeah. You know, we're never going to go back to, 2% of appointments happening remotely.
Right.
20 to 25% is going to be the standard. But instead of, saying, wow, we did it, let's aim even higher.
I completely agree. Well, Alex, as always, a phenomenal show. We're at time, but your insights are invaluable, and I'm going to certainly have you back. I want to have you back on a more regular basis, because this industry is evolving very quickly, and I think that it's very important that people stay ahead of the curve. These curves are coming at us more quickly than ever before,
yep.
And so, but you guys got, as I mentioned at the top of the show, great content. And I'm just grateful for your time. So thank you, Alex, and always for taking time out of your schedule. We want to say thank you from me and everybody at the show. So thank you.
Always a pleasure. Always a great conversation. Always happy to do it. Want to say again, if people are interested in the content, they can go to our YouTube channel, Chilmark Research, find us on the web, and always happy to talk to people. Always happy to engage. So thank you so much for having me back.
As always, Alex, thank you. And thank you to everyone for joining us. And please tune in weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific to hear our latest shows. As always, you can track me on Twitter at HIT Advisor and use the hashtag ThisJustinRadio so you can respond to your comments from this show. If you missed any of this episode or want to hear more, my shows are all posted at Apple iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and TuneIn. You can also check out some of the updates that we posted on justinbarnes.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a terrific week and stay safe.